and welcome to D&Q Football. We're a couple of games in, there he is, a couple of games in to African Cup of Nations and AFC Asian Cup now. Date of recording 19th of January, and this is our first longer format podcasty type episode of 2024. We hope you are well. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm well, just as you hope, my friend. Excuse me.
Always.
Yeah, the first podcast ep. We always sound so unconvincing, don't we, when we come into these? Like we don't quite know what it is. Capping it off. We're calling it capping it off. Welcome back to Capping It Off, a D&Q podcast. Mate, I'm very, very well. How are you? How's your week been?
It's been all right.
Life?
Getting there. The swing of things now. I mean, we're sort of too long into January for me to say, just get over the Christmas break.
It's funny,
I'm
isn't it?
Sticking with it. Yeah.
Have you had I've had a few conversations with people at work, and they've at the start of the week, just getting back into the swing of it. It's like, mate, it's the 16th of January.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm probably going to be saying that into March.
Yeah.
As long as I can eke this out. But to be honest, at least we've had plenty of football to sink our teeth into. Where do you want to start? Should we start with the African Cup of Nations?
Definitely, mate. There's so much to talk about. And I think, as we're only a couple of minutes into this recording, it's probably worth throwing out there that we've not been, for anyone that's noticed, we've not been over kind of like the individual games as much as maybe we would have simply because work and busy lives. Tom, you've got a new job starting in February, so you're squaring everything off in your current job, and I've just had a blooming busy January. So what we're going to do, I think, as we said on a previous video or something like that we were going to try and do more of these kind of weekly longer chats of just talking around anything that's topical, that's happening in the world of international football and of course international minnows. So mate, yes, let's start with AFCON. And as I said, because we've not done any individual videos on any of the games or any of the teams and how they're getting on just yet, we can kind of just almost go with like what's been happening so far, what's gone on in AFCON so far. And I guess in summary, I threw a tweet out. Are they still called tweets? X's? Who knows? I threw a tweet out there. Basically, it's been the tournament of the I called it underdog, and then someone threw a comment. I couldn't remember who commented saying actually there's not many of these are upsets. But I was talking about how there'd been a load of upsets because there's been a lot of unexpected results, a lot of them being draws. And I think it is it's the tournament of the upset so far, because in my opinion, mate, a lot of these results are upsets. What about you? Am I strong with that word? I don't think I am, mate.
I think a lot of people have quite strong takes on minnow and upset and underdog as sort of terms, because people have corrected me before when I've said, these minnow nation teams, and they're like, well, actually, technically, they're not really minnow nations. And it's like, well, it's an endearing term that we use for a team unfancied, in whatever the context is, right?
Yeah.
So like Equatorial Guinea are an unfancied team in this tournament when you compare them to Nigeria and Ivory Coast, right? If you were to ask an average football fan to name 10 African football countries, they're naming Nigeria and Ivory Coast long before they get to Equatorial Guinea, I'm sure. This is an average football fan, of course. And I think, that's what we mean, and the African Cup of Nations has a brilliant blend of the top teams from Africa that you'd expect. And then a lot of teams that are still very, very competent, as we've seen, but are just sort of slightly unfancied. And this tournament's so good at bringing them out. And it is, a tournament of upsets, as we've seen. And I don't think anything quite shows that as much as, all right, maybe not any upsets so far, but Ivory Coast, they've played two, they've won one, they've then lost. And if they draw their final game, they'll be out.
Well, they won't, will they? Because they'll be on 4 points, and that will definitely be enough to take them through in the third spot.
True.
So let's start with Ivory Coast, because Ivory Coast are, of course, the host nation. So they kicked off the tournament on the 13th of January, which was less than a week ago now, so 6 days ago now, and they opened it up with a fairly routine victory over Guinea-Bissau. And then, do excuse us, but I'm going to rattle through some results here and only talk about those upsets and some of the key points of the tournament so far. Then we started off with Nigeria that are fancied by a few. I think a lot's been made of the attacking prowess that they've got in their squad, the uncertainty that they've got at the back. They had a surprising draw against Equatorial Guinea. Then this was on Sunday. That was then swiftly followed up by two other, what I'm calling upsets. Egypt 2,
Yeah.
Mozambique 2. Salah with a last-minute equaliser for Egypt. And that would have been, I mean, if Mozambique win that would have been insane. But, I mean, for them to get the draw is still an impressive result. And then later that night, Ghana lost to Cape Verde. Cape Verde, I don't know how we're going to pronounce that. Is that Cape Verde or Cape Verde?
I would say Cape Verde.
Cape Verde. Who then beat them 2-1. Ghana without our star boy Mo Kudus on that one, as we'll then talk about later. He's made an immediate impact. So that just to sort of start off, we've had that routine Ivory Coast win, and then 3 what I'm calling upsets, mate. And then we've gone through and we've had Senegal were comfy. Cameroon had a scruffy draw against Guinea, and they didn't look great. Algeria were unimpressive in their draw against Angola. Again, didn't see that coming. You'd have thought they'd have had enough in their locker to win that game. Burkina Faso, Mauritania wasn't a great game, wasn't a great spectacle. Some of the pitches haven't helped. They've not been conducive of good football. And then again, we're coming, we're only sort of 4 days into the tournament at this point, and then Tunisia are turned over by Namibia. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, were Namibia the lowest ranked team in the tournament? No, it's Tanzania,
that was Tanzania,
isn't it? Tanzania,
but
yeah.
Namibia right down there.
Yeah.
And of course, we did actually speak about them before. In a not too bad group, they're in the group with Mali, Tunisia, and South Africa. Really interesting to see how that one shapes up, because that opening game for Tunisia was huge, because now they've got to play against Mali and South Africa, both of which will be looking at them and thinking, now we can beat them now. They've already had that huge slip up against Namibia.
And it is huge.
But Namibia also, now they can go into these remaining 2 games thinking, even if they lose both, they are in with a decent chance of getting through in 3rd spot.
Yeah.
And what they have to do is just try and get a draw. And you know what? Maybe not against Mali, because I fancy Mali as a decent side, but against South Africa, a draw there, and they've pretty much guaranteed that they're through either 2nd or 3rd.
Yeah. I think Mali are a strong team in that group, so I'd expect Mali to give it. But the fact that they've got the 3 points on the board means that they are that 3rd spot opens up so many possibilities. So as soon as you secure a result like that, you put yourself in a really good spot. Yeah, Mali, they've got Bazuma, Haidara, Doumbia, Dieng. They've got a good side there, and they started with a 2-0 victory over South Africa, who aren't in the best spot for this tournament, and they're up against it now. Have they got Namibia in their next game? Sorry, we're not structuring this at all, are we? Very well. We're just going through the results so far. We'll talk groups, and we'll talk about where things are in a moment. But we're just kind of blitzing through the results that have happened so far. DR Congo, Zambia was 1-1. Did you see the goal in that game?
I don't know if I have seen the goal.
Oh, you must have seen it. So it's a Zambia goal. Ball goes long. It's Kings Kangwa's goal. So ball goes long. The goalie runs out and then knocks it out for a throw in. They take a quick throw, bounce, half volley over the goalie and then 2 other defenders and makes away. Unbelievable. Unbelievable goal. And then Brentford's Visser equalised for DR Congo, and he's a good player. Actually, I think he's an underrated player. And then we've started to have, from yesterday at the time of recording, of course, the 2nd round of fixtures has kicked off across each of the groups. So this is probably quite a good place to start, almost talking about it from Group A downwards, mate. But Equatorial Guinea with a win. So they're at 4 points now from 2 games, a 4-2 victory over Guinea-Bissau. Unsu with a hat-trick, the first AFCON hat-trick since 2000 I saw this somewhere, and I think it's 2009 or something like that.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Very good player, Unsu.
But what a result. And they at 4 points now. Are they through? Guaranteed. They're guaranteed at least top 3. They're guaranteed at least top 3, and 4 points would definitely be enough for a 3rd. That's normally enough, isn't it? 4 points, even if you're coming 3rd. And then Ivory Coast lost to Nigeria. So Group A, did we say in our preview that we thought 3 would go through from Group A?
Well, I think that we said,
'Cause I
look,
think they will.
Guinea-Bissau, whilst they've improved of late, like they were going to be beaten by Equatorial Guinea, is what we said.
Yeah.
And that was obviously correct. And so that leaves the third place team on at least 3 points, is what we thought. Now, obviously, not everyone's played Guinea-Bissau yet, but they've lost both games so far.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely one of those games we thought, yeah, it's not a 2-2 type situation. Equatorial Guinea are good enough to beat Guinea-Bissau and then get through. And of course, the draw for them just adds to that. That draw with Nigeria, which is huge. And of course, we'll find out who ends up sort of topping the group and things on the final day. But it'd be really interesting to see how they get on against Ivory Coast.
Yeah, it really will. And then, so Group A with the top 3 teams: Equatorial Guinea, Nigeria, Ivory Coast. They're all guaranteed to be in the top 3 of the group, and I think they're all guaranteed to go through. Really, obviously,
Yeah, I
we'll have
think
to see
it's
we'll
likely.
have to see how so Group B, the group with Cape Verde, Egypt, Ghana, and Mozambique. They've now all played 2 games, which is really interesting. Cape Verde with a really routine victory against Mozambique today. I don't know, you might have been, I remember it, and I don't know if you were too young. I know you definitely weren't too young, but you just might not remember it. But can you remember when Man United had a winger called Bebe?
Yeah.
So basically, yeah. So the backstory for anyone that doesn't know is Sir Alex Ferguson signed Bebe from scouts who had scouted him at a homeless World Cup. I'm pretty certain it's something like this, right? So Man United paid a Portuguese side or a Brazilian side, I'm pretty sure it's a Portuguese side, like 7 million for Bebe as a winger. He then spent about 4 years going out on loan, and he wasn't great. He scored the opener in that game today in Cape Verde's 3-0 win over Mozambique with a 40-yard free kick.
Nice.
Which again, if you haven't seen it go, the goalkeeping is less than impressive. But the victory guarantees Cape Verde advance into the knockout stages, which is incredible in a group with Egypt and
Guaranteed top.
Ghana. Guaranteed. They are guaranteed top, yeah, of course, because Egypt and Ghana drew 2-2. Egypt loving the 2-2s in this tournament so far, and Mohamed Kudus with an immediate impact for Ghana. What a player, mate. We've seen this obviously at West Ham this season, how impressive this guy is. The goals, man. I think it's his second goal. He gets the ball just on the edge, cuts inside. The left foot that he's got is an absolute arrow. It's great to see him in AFCON. He's had a bit of a hamstring injury, so it's great to see him back on the biggest stage in African football and making his mark. I think, mate, with his return and their final game against Mozambique, I think Ghana probably win that and go through. Thoughts and opinions?
I tell you what's interesting. I agree with that point, but what's really interesting is Cape Verde. If they don't take their foot off the gas, half a chance that they can cause an upset against Egypt. Egypt, then I would say 2 points, not necessarily enough to guarantee that they go through. One of the favourites, of course, to win this tournament. I think Egypt will at least draw against Cape Verde on paper, and then we'll go through. And Ghana, if they win, will go through. But it's not easy.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting here one. So Egypt up against it. Salah's now injured. Don't know how long if he's out for the whole tournament or whatever that ends up being. But Cape Verde are, because they're going to guarantee top, they probably will rest and rotate. Why would you risk your best players for a game that's actually a dead rubber? They're going through, and actually they're going through top. And then Egypt have a necessity to win. So I think that could lend itself quite favourably for Egypt. And then I think Ghana and Egypt will probably still make it through. Because I think they'll both pick up victories, which will mean that they'll accrue enough points. Whoever comes third, which would be Ghana in this case, will have 4 points and will come in one of the third,
The four or the six third place spots.
That's it. And then we've got actually, just at the time that we're recording, we do have Senegal taking on Cameroon. They're 10 minutes in and it's 0-0 at the moment. But Senegal, I want to talk about this, and I know from Group C and onwards, they've only played one game, and we've touched on some of the results. But I want to shine a light on a couple of these things. So, Gambia's opener in their second ever edition of AFCON was a fairly comfortable win for Senegal.
The Senegambia derby.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, because they're next to each other, aren't they?
Oh.
Gambia's
nice.
within Senegal.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And so Gambia have been playing their home games in Senegal for the last however long because they haven't got a stadium. So it's a real big derby match. But it's one of those derby matches where, and of course, I love Gambia, no disrespect. Senegal are so good that they are a lot better than Gambia, and they did show that. It's not easy always at AFCON. You can't take any game lightly, but a 3-0 win puts them in huge cruise control now. If they can get a draw against Cameroon, it's a done deal for them to go through. Gambia need to bounce back, but Guinea, no slouches either. We said before the tournament, this is one of the hardest groups. Cameroon are very solid. Of course, got that draw with Guinea in the opening day, which shows how good Guinea still are. Gambia, not only are they on 0 points after one, but they've also got that -3 next to them as well, which is, I'm not going to say it's going to be a huge decider, but it's obviously not great. If they were to draw with Guinea, they're still that -3 behind at least everyone else. So, yeah, tough for them, I'd say.
Yeah, I think so, mate. I think so. I mean, just looking at the lineups in that Senegal-Gambia game, there is a real disparity in quality in the teams.
Sure.
Senegal, Koulibaly, Mane, Mendy in goal, Ismaili Sarr, Niakate, and then these are good players. Of course, Gambia have got great players. Omar Colley is the skipper, but you are looking at, like, this is meant in no disrespectful way at all, but you can't compare Sadio Mane to Moussa Barrow. It's we're talking at opposite ends of not opposite ends, but you know what I mean. They're a step above, aren't they? And I felt that result was comfortable and showed really. Group D, I think, is going to end up being interesting because of Algeria's 1-1 against Angola, and the fact that Algeria now play Burkina Faso, who got a late winner against Mauritania. Burkina Faso, Algeria is a close game.
It's not clear cut for sure.
And there is pressure on Algeria after that opening day draw, especially that Mauritania and Angola play each other. So that's going to be interesting, mate. I'm impressed there. I thought Algeria would comfortably win that opener against Angola, who have done really well to pick up a result there. Again, you think Algeria with Mahrez, Ait Nouri. I'm looking at their team here: Bentaleb, Benasser. That's so many good big names in there.
It's a huge result for Angola. What they have to do now is just follow it up. Mauritania are not easy, and it's also a totally different game plan. You're going in against Algeria knowing that you're not going to have much of the ball, and you're going to try and sort of have to counter attack at times and play a certain way. And then you're going to be against Mauritania, who might try and do that to you. So it'll be really interesting to see how that game shapes up. When it's played, and if Angola can get a win, then maybe it's another group where 3 go through.
I think it is. I think if Angola win that, mate, that's 4 points, and
should be
4
enough.
points. I'm sorry, you've got to be confident that you're going to sneak in one of those third spots. Yeah. I think just moving on now to Group E, I think this is such an interesting next round of fixtures. Got Tunisia versus Mali. Tunisia dented after that opening day defeat that we've spoken about. That's a tough game against Mali. Great team. South Africa, Namibia. If Namibia get a result there, again, whether it's a draw or whether it's a win I think guarantees them and puts them through. But a draw, again, you're landing at that 4-point mark where you're going to definitely be in the running to get one of those. I feel like we're saying that for every group now, aren't they? But you know what I mean.
Well, they can't all go through.
No, I know, but it's like that for a team ranked 115th to have an opportunity. They're going to be bang up for that game, and South Africa are up against it after that defeat, mate.
For me, I think Namibia need to try and target a win in that game because, their final games against Mali, what you don't want is for them to, if they draw this game and then lose 3-0 to Mali, they will be on -2 goal difference. And that might factor in if a lot of teams get 4 points. And so I'm not saying that they would lose 3-0 to Mali, but Mali likely to win every game in the group now. You don't know for sure, but they're likely to. If Namibia can beat South Africa, they are through. Tunisia and South Africa are both potentially out, and Namibia can go into that last game knowing that the result against Mali just doesn't matter, which would be huge. But I think they have to try and go for it, and they have to try and target a win and guarantee themselves through to the knockout round.
The last group, Morocco, DR Congo, Zambia, and Tanzania, again, the way that the fixtures, it feels like the fixtures have fallen really, really nicely for some of these to make them kind of spicy. So, because we'd have said before, I don't know how we put it out there, but we'd have said Morocco and probably DR Congo to go through in that group. And the fact that the DR Congo drew with Zambia, and now their next game they play Morocco, you'd say, well, actually, I think Morocco will probably beat them there. And then if Zambia can get the result, get a victory over Tanzania, suddenly DR Congo are like, they go into their last game desperately needing a win. It just
I might be lying.
there's so much to this. I'm loving following this tournament because it feels like there's so many different I'm not going to say plot twists, but it feels like
Storylines.
it can the way that it can go can change with every match, which I know is obviously a given. But
I feel like when we did our final AFCON predictions, something's telling me I said Zambia would come second.
really,
Something's telling me that I backed Zambia, but I don't know if I'm making that up now retrospectively. And I don't know if when they eventually come bottom of this group, I'm going to withdraw that statement. And I don't want to jinx them, but they got a very, very good, very interesting result against DR Congo. I will say a win would have helped, because if it comes to a shootout about who can sort of beat Tanzania by more goals or whatever, or who can survive Morocco in the best way, that's going to be tough. But it's interestingly poised.
Yeah, it is, mate. It is. And let me just do a very quick whilst
Senegal are 1-0 up as we're recording,
yes,
by the way.
they are. They have just gone 1-0 up. Have they just scored now? I think they've just scored.
Yep.
Indeed. Who was it? Ismaili Sarr. Yeah, he scored 2 minutes ago. Hey, the plot thickens.
Well, it does.
Loving it, man, though. It's so good, man.
A win for Senegal would be huge for Gambia, because they then play Guinea. And if they can beat Guinea, they're right back in it.
Yeah,
they're right back in it. And it's a huge chance. It's also huge for Guinea, of course, because of the opposite. They'll know if Cameroon lose to Senegal and they beat Gambia, because they got that opening day draw against Cameroon, they fancy themselves on 4 points, as we've said already, to go through. So, it's all shaping up quite nicely in Group C.
It's so good, man. I just love it. It's such a great tournament, and we're blessed to have that aligned. Now, are we done on the AFCON chat? And we've got to do this. So I think what we'll do is, when we're doing a bit of a weekly catch up with stuff and a bit of a longer form stuff where we're just chatting things through, I think we'll get a couple more when we can talk about AFCON. I think the next one we'll almost have the group stages will be done, or it'll be almost there. So it'll be nice if we can do it again maybe next Friday.
Match day 3 of 3 ends on Wednesday the 24th, and then the round of 16 starts on Saturday the 27th.
Wow! Yeah, so we've got to do that then. Next Friday then, mate, on the 26th. We've got to, or maybe on the Thursday, we'll do a roundup of. Well, we can chat through all of the group stage results and then look ahead to those round of 16 fixtures. So that looks really nice.
The final thing I'll say on AFCON, if I'm not mistaken, Guinea-Gambia last AFCON, was that not the game where Gambia in the round of 16 beat them 1-0?
Yes,
and went through. If they can repeat that, maybe they're in with a chance. But shall we move on to the other brilliant tournament that's going on? Started a day before, the AFC Asian Cup.
Yeah, let's do it, mate. Let's do it. I'm going to hold my hands up from the outset here and apologise, because I feel that access and footage and ways to watch AFCON is a hell of a lot easier here in the UK than it is to watch the AFC Asian Cup. So my knowledge and I guess sort of intricate detail of how of like moments in games and goals and stuff for this, I apologise. It is less because it just doesn't seem to be. I mean, you can't really watch any of it unless you're YouTubing highlights, basically. Is that how you find it as well? It's quite frustrating, mate, if I'm being honest.
You can watch all of the AFCON games on Sky Sports as well, which makes it a lot easier in the UK. And as fans of Minnow Nation football, we're kind of used to YouTube searching for games, but it does make things a little bit harder to track. And of course, a lot of AFCON games, because of the geography of it, they're being played at times that are far easier to track in the UK as well. I know it's only a few hours away in Qatar, but the games today, for example, in AFCON kick off at 5 and then 8, whereas some of the games are already done in the AFC Asian Cup, and it's all a bit here, there, and everywhere. Now, it's easier to track than if it were in China, as it was supposed to be. And China, speaking of them, they're a side that have not got off to the best start, I wouldn't say.
For a little bit of an Asian Cup chinwag, should we just go group by group? I mean, again, Group A and B have done, A, B, and C have done a couple of games. for some of the teams. And then again, we're early into this tournament. I think we'll go through each of the groups and then actually, I guess, draw attention to some of those more, we call them minnow nations. You know what we mean at this point by now, and maybe draw attention to some of the results that they've had. I think we outlined that India were, I think we called it the group of death in a video, didn't we?
We
Did we
did.
call it when we reacted to the draw?
Yeah.
And that's sort of proved to be the case, hasn't it? That's Group B, so of course not going to jump ahead, but maybe we'll do that. So Group A has been, I mean, it's been fairly dry of goals. I'll say
It's
that.
been drab. It's been drab. Qatar played 2, scored 4, top of the group going through. And then if you look at the other games, China have played 2, drawn 2, no goals for, no goals against.
Yeah.
Very, very drab. Of course, Qatar's win over Lebanon was really the only game with any goals in it.
Yeah, and he's Akram Afif, who scored in their win over Tajikistan. I remember he was a player in the opening game when they played Ecuador in the World Cup. It was him and I think one other. It might have actually been, was it Al Moiz Ali? It might have been, but they highlighted 2 players for Qatar that were creative and sort of pacey and worth keeping an eye on. And he started the tournament really well, 3 goals in 2 games. But that group's sort of a little bit, I mean, through our lens of looking at international upsets and small nations doing amazing things, it's a little bit, there's not much there that's kind of getting me out of my seat. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to throw my hands up here. I really apologize. I've not YouTubed and looked at the highlights of China 0, Tajikistan 0, or Lebanon 0, China 0 kind of thing. If that makes sense. Sorry.
Well, I think the only thing that I'll say is
I feel
China.
Like I'm letting the side down here, man.
China have made a rough of their own back because Qatar play China. Qatar will fancy themselves to beat China. Tajikistan and Lebanon, if one of them wins, they'll leapfrog China into second spot. And I don't think 2 points is enough to get through.
No, I agree.
So China's opening 2 games, the 2 drab draws. Lebanon or Tajikistan, whoever you fancy, could end up going through despite having not won in their opening 2 match days. And yeah, of course, moving on to Group B, India played 2, lost 2, conceded 5 yet to score. What can you say? They've played Uzbekistan, they've played Australia. Australia are through. Syria now, of course, play India, and they'll be hoping to win. It's their only chance of getting through as one of the third place sides.
And I'd imagine Syria will probably beat India and with 4 points secure one of those best performing third place teams. I think for India, they've and we'll talk mainly about them as the nation that we have more interest in across the others. In that first game against Australia, to go and to get to half time at 0-0 was really impressive. It's one of them, isn't it? After half time, you want to keep it tight for 10, 15, 20 minutes and try and drag that out and create that sense of anxiety almost in amongst the Australian team. Like, come on, we've got to win this game. But 5 minutes in, Jackson Irvine scored for Australia, and then suddenly it's a bit more comfortable, isn't it?
Yeah.
But to concede 2 in the second half, not bad. Uzbekistan is almost the flip reverse of that, where they were 3-0 down before the break and the game's done. I think they were 2-0 down within inside 20 minutes and it's done. It's tricky. I wonder if it will be the last tournament or the last AFC Asian Cup for the likes of Sunil Chetri, really. I'm looking at some of these other, I know they've got some other older, more experienced players in the lineup, but Chetri stands out.
Yeah, and it's a tough group. They drew a horrific group, really. They've got to hope they can pull off a bit of a miracle, beat Syria and go through third with 3 points. There's still a chance, but I'd say it's probably unlikely looking at the way that things have fallen. They could have done with a game against Syria to start with, give them the best chance to get a bit of a foothold, and then you can approach the game slightly differently. But like you say, tough group, and looks like India are on their way out. Hong Kong, at the time of recording, in Group C, they've only played 1, but it was, of course, a defeat as well to Iran. But still, they've got 2 games left. Sorry, not Iran, UAE.
Yeah, it was UAE.
They've got 2 games left. One of them against Iran, and then the other against Palestine, who then drew with UAE. So it's going to be tough for them as well.
It is, mate. Yeah, it is. They were in that game against UAE for quite a bit of it. Only 2-1 until until the 90th minute. So they were only a goal within a goal of their opponents. But yeah, they've got a tough group. They finish against Palestine, and I'd imagine because Palestine got a draw in their second game against UAE, which is a great result for them. Palestine have something to play for in that last game. The whole thing of the victory gets them to 4 points, and they'll be eyeing up the third place spot. So not much to really say, I don't think, for Group C, mate. I think that looks like it's going to be a bit of a formality. Group D is very interesting because we've got both Indonesia and Vietnam. And whilst Vietnam opened the tournament with an incredibly impressive first half showing against Japan, it was 2-2 at the break. No, sorry, I think it was 3-2 to Japan. I don't know. It was really close. I know they scored 2 first half goals. I'm looking at it here. Hold on. 4-2, but
yeah, it was 3-2 half time.
But to only, and we know how the form of Japan going into, well, I was going to say, we know the form of Japan going into the tournament. So that's was an unfortunate result. However, they have today lost 1-0 to Indonesia, which I was not expecting. Vietnam were down to 10 in that one.
Last minute, though. That was a last minute red.
Was it?
So it was, most of the game was.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
11 versus 11. Obviously, the late red card is not going to help them in their last game against group leaders Iraq, who have played to 1-2. A great win for them against Japan. But Indonesia's win.
That's a great shout. We're not even looking at this tournament necessarily to focus on those kind of results, but was not expecting that, mate. They were 2 up at the break, Iraq, and Japan now have to beat. I mean, it's not great for Indonesia, I guess, is it that actually? Because Japan now have to beat them in the last game.
No, but it adds a good level of spice. I mean, Iraq, they'll probably beat Vietnam, and then you're in a position where Indonesia, the wins are so important. They've got 3 points now. You look across the rest of the groups, there's no guarantees that that's not going to be one of the top 4 third place sides.
True.
You look right across the groups. So I think that there's a.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed that they've got that. That they've got that win. That they got that win today. It's a really impressive result. Set up Jordi Amat as the centre of a back 5, and as Nawi with the
wing backs.
Yeah. No, it's great, and we followed them quite a lot, haven't we, across the last few years?
And they've been improving,
And then as we just go through, mate, we've got Group E, which looks a little bit for formality, really, with Jordan and South Korea both winning their games.
Nothing Bahrain, you can say really about Group E. There's only been the one game.
Yeah, they've sort of gone to what you'd expect. And I guess you could sort of say the same about Group F, although it's great that Thailand, they divide up that first game against Kyrgyzstan that they'd have needed to win, and they did. So you've got Thailand, Saudi Arabia, Oman, and Kyrgyzstan. Thailand and Saudi Arabia have won the first game. And that's kind of it, isn't it? That's sort of where we're at. It feels like, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong here, mate. Sorry for interrupting. It feels like there's less of like, and maybe it's just because we're in the UK, so we're not seeing any of it really at all. But apart from some of the stuff that's happening in Group D with Iraq, Japan, and maybe Group C with some impressive, Palestine, they got a really good result against UAE. I don't know, maybe we're just not being fed enough of AFC Asian Cup stuff to
I think the tournament's not yet exploded into life, I think.
That's it. That's a good way of putting it. I think. But is that because we're not fed that? We're not fed that explosion. Whereas with everything AFCON, we're like, I mean, I can't do sort of 3 scrolls on my Twitter feed without seeing something AFCON related, basically, which I love. But it would be nice to have that for the AFC Asian Cup as well. Because I feel that there's probably, across the UK, it's probably not like enough of an understanding on it as a tournament, wasn't it? Because we know people that are Spurs fans, and it's like, Son's going off. He's got some international tournament. It's like, whoa, hold on. This is our equivalent of the Euros that they're having now.
Yeah,
it's huge. And I think there's not been enough. There's not enough education, but there's not enough. It's not broadcast enough here, mate.
No, I agree, really. And when you consider that it's based in Qatar, so it would be pretty easy. All the infrastructure's there to broadcast these games. It's a shame that there haven't been. I think that we're still waiting for some moments, though, some last gasp goals, some winners, some real shock upsets. I think that, and it's up to people to decide whether or not they agree with me. there is a bigger disparity between the top teams and the lower teams in Asia than there is in the Asian Cup than there is in AFCON. I
Yeah.
think. So if you just
Yeah.
like
Why is
purely
that, do you think?
rankings, I don't know, but like you look at Indonesia, right? Indonesia are one of the lowest ranked teams in this tournament. They are lower ranked by quite a bit than like Tanzania, who are the lowest ranked team at AFCON. There's only 3 or 4 African teams that are really, really up there, and there's a lot of African teams that are like middle of the road. And I feel like with Asia, there is far more of a bunch of good teams or decent teams, and then quite a big drop off a little bit. And I think that makes it harder for those incredible moments, right? Like, you know, Namibia beat Tunisia, right? Indonesia aren't going to beat Japan. If they do, that would be a huge moment, but that's a far bigger gap to try and make up.
Yeah. I mean, but as you sort of said, alluded to there, I mean, you've got Indonesia that they're ranked sort of 40 places lower than Namibia, aren't they? So you're comparing different levels. But I know what you mean. I do know what you mean.
And that's maybe why there's less upsets and the group just goes more like you'd expect. Like Indonesia beating Vietnam, that's huge. That's a huge upset. But because those teams are closer in the rankings and still sort of bunched together in that minnow space that we talk about, it's less of the sort of headline news than the Namibia upset, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because where are Tunisia? Tunisia have got to be top. What are they top? Where are they in the rankings? Because I'm just saying, like Indonesia beating Vietnam. Vietnam are top 100, almost around that mark. So Indonesia winning that game is quite big from a ranking upset point of view. Whereas Namibia,
yeah, but Tunisia are 28 in the world.
Yeah, Namibia beating them, that's insane. Yeah.
You know? But what I mean is you look at like basically how many teams are I'm going to count teams now, so this is going to be super boring. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Great content coming to you only from DQ.
11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. There's 20 teams, not all of them at AFCON. There are 20 teams in the top 100 from Africa, but there's so many between 50 and 100.
Yeah.
Like so many in that middle ranking. You got Mali, Burkina Faso, Ghana, South Africa, Congo, Cape Verde, Guinea, you know, Zambia, Equatorial Guinea. All of these teams are at AFCON between 50 and 100 in the world. And I just feel like that's, you know,
also,
that middle ground that I was speaking about.
Is this a bad comment to make? And maybe it is. So, mate, feel free to correct me. The pitches at AFCON they are a leveler as well.
They are a leveler. They are definitely a
versus. Do you agree with that, or is that a harsh? I don't want to start. I'm not here to. I'm not knocking African footballing infrastructure at all. That's not the point. But I've seen some of these pitches, and it's if you're going to, you know,
it's like cup sets.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's not the same as like a League One pitch, but like when Premier League teams get drawn away to Championship or League One or League Two teams.
West Ham, we had a few years ago. We were away to Kidderminster.
Yes,
and the pitch there was actually pretty decent still, but just a whole. But it wasn't
the
like
conditions
the
are different.
Yeah.
You know, and this is what I mean. You know, you've got Japanese players that are really, really good playing on pretty much carpets, like a lot of them are used to. You do lose a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, they'll be playing on good. The surfaces and stuff in Qatar will be on point.
That's what I'm saying. It's carpets. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. So but I mean, they lost to Iraq. I mean, but Iraq are a good side. Anyway, sorry, we digress. Anyway, by the way, if you're still here after 40 minutes of just us basically just chewing over everything AFCON and AFC Asian Cup, give yourself a pat on the back and do us a favor by hitting like on this video.
Mm-hmm.
It massively helps the channel out, helps this video out, and makes us very happy.
It is free to drop a like on the channel.
Oh, what a creepy smile that was. I've got the most, you know, they say about really good looking people that they've got a really symmetrical face. I have the most unsymmetrical broken face you've ever seen.
Who do you think's got a less symmetrical face?
Well, obviously me. Look at my nose. My nose is broken in about 3 different places.
That's tough. That's crazy. Are you crazy? Yeah, but my nose is also not straight.
No, I know, but your face is far more symmetrical than my sort of broken, angular thing that I've got above my shoulders. Anyway, sorry, we've really moved on from that.
Wow.
Like and subscribe. Right, what we doing, pal? We calling that?
We're going. We're leaving you. But you've been here with us for, as Ryan said, 40 minutes now. And we appreciate every single one of you. There will be a transition with D&Q as I find my feet in my new job and we work out what we're doing with the channel in 2024 in terms of we're still going to be here. We're still going to be bringing the content. There's probably going to be more longer form episodes. And we're going to work out the best way to bring that to you, whether or not some of these are live streams or whatever. We'll work it out. But for now, thanks for watching as always. And we will see you next time.